Welcome back to another episode of Gear or Gadget. Today we have Jake out of the office today, but he is with us. We're going to break down 3 pieces of gear or gadgets that we have used in the past. But before we get into that, 3 ground rules. Number 1, we're not here to bash any certain brands. Number 2, no use of the term game changer. 2, overuse, the game is not changing, the game is the same. Number 3, if you like the content, please leave us a comment, hit the like button, and subscribe for more.
All right, so there's a lot of people that are going to think I am going off the deep end.
Oh, yeah.
And there's going to be some people that totally disagree with me, and that's okay. And for anyone who does disagree with me, I want you to leave your comments down below and genuinely would like to have a conversation and engage with you on this topic. That topic is micro diameter arrow shafts and why they are a gimmick. I said it, gimmick, gadget, here it is. Not too long ago, I was bought into the trend where I had to be shooting micro diameter shafts for the same reason everyone else does. They claim to get better penetration, as bow hunters were worried about that. They claim to have less, let's say, wind resistance.
Yeah.
And all of that boils down to the surface area of the shaft. There's less surface area here, so in theory, you should get more penetration, less resistance, and the same thing with the wind. However, after my struggles last year shooting these shafts, and I've shot them for the last couple of years, but last year specifically when I went down the Ranch Ferry wormhole and went to the high FOC and the knock tuning, bare shaft tuning, all yada, 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 went down that wormhole for months, it led me to do a lot of research. So let me debunk a couple things here. And I think I'll start with the thought of these being less influenced by crosswind. Let's start there. I feel like that's the easiest thing. Less influenced by crosswind. Let's start there. I feel like that's the easiest thing. So when you're obviously shooting arrow shafts at distance, you have vanes on one end and you have a broadhead on the other end. The highest hole in the bucket there is your arrow shaft. When you start to, shoot these at distance with some type of crosswind, your broadhead is going to have more influence over that arrow flight with the crosswind. And then the second thing is going to be your vanes. So when you start shooting different size arrow shafts side by side, identical setups, same weight, same broadhead, same vane configuration, the arrow shaft diameter has less to do with that than your vane configuration and your broadhead. So I'll leave that as number 1. Number 2 is a little more complicated, but the thought of micro diameter shafts having better penetration performance over 204s, 246s, whatever, it's a falsehood. I'll call it a falsehood. And it gets a little more complicated than just, talking about a couple different concepts. But the one thing as bow hunters that we're all worried about is penetration. These claim to have better penetration. Penetration is caused by momentum. You calculate momentum, mass times velocity. With these micro diameter shafts having less surface area, the thought there is that when these penetrate through momentum, that there is less friction. So there's, your friction coefficient on the shaft is less than a 204, a 246. And this is just one part of it. But with a good broadhead, proper broadhead, this arrow is going to, let me back up. When the broadhead penetrates the animal, it is moving material. It's moving flesh. It's moving organ. It's moving things. It's creating a wound channel. Not every part of your arrow is going to be in contact with flesh and have some type of friction coefficient loss. So that's number 1.
Regardless of the shaft diameter.
Regardless of the shaft diameter, yeah. The shaft, that doesn't even come into play. But the thought is, less surface area, penetrating, there's less friction there. In theory, yes, it's true, but your entire shaft you're not forcing this through something that is closed. Your broadhead's opening that channel up and then your arrow's sliding in behind it. So that's kind of thought process number 1. Number 2 is much more mathematical. It's much more proven on science and not just opinion or theory. And that is, with these micro diameter shafts, you have thicker wall size. The thicker material, for this arrow to physically move, you have to put more energy to it. By flexing this area, which every single arrow flexes, you are using more work. So force over duration of time. That makes sense? For this arrow to recover, it has to do more work. The arrow itself is doing more work. The more work it does, the less efficient it becomes downrange. The less efficient your arrow is, the less velocity it has. Going back to that mathematical equation, when you lose velocity, you're going to lose momentum. And that is why a 166 or micro diameter shaft is a gadget.
Yeah, you're paying a lot more money for a 166 arrow because they're harder to make. The process, it's a little bit harder, more challenging to make, and you're paying a lot more for it because they're selling you on the idea that it's going to penetrate better. I know you're going to have people that are watching this video, they're going to say, I've shot my 246 next to my 166 in a block target and the 166 penetrated better. Or I've shot it through ballistic gel and the 166 penetrated better. But that is not...
It's a different concept when you're shooting a live animal.
When you shoot that block or the ballistic gel, when you shoot it, the material closes in on itself and it's grabbing the arrow. So when you have less surface area in that scenario, yes, that is a benefit. Your 166 will out-penetrate a 246 into a target. We're not worried about penetration on targets. We're trying to kill animals. You want to pass through. Right. That's the goal. That's the difference. So,
well, my challenge to that would be, and you're 100% correct. There's no argument there. I'm not going to argue that fact at all. Zero. Shoot a 204 or shoot a 246. Same setup, same, almost identical arrow as much as possible. Same total weight, same broadhead point, vein configuration. And look at your POA, your point of aim versus your POI, point of impact, and see what is different per shooting distance, 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards, and see where that arrow impacts differently. That is going to tell you roughly which arrow is more efficient, downrange, creating more momentum. I know there's people think I'm crazy. Jake probably thinks I'm crazy.
We just lost 100 subs. I just know it. 100 subs, just unsub, dislike, never listen to you again. That's what just happened.
Probably. And that's okay. If somebody, I know there's people out there that are going to disagree with me on this. Please leave those comments in the comment section. And I would love to go down this wormhole and engage with people because I think that there's a lot of people buying these things thinking they're getting better performance, and I don't think that they are.
Yeah, it's that micro diameter has definitely expanded drastically in the last, 2 or 3 years, and it seems that it's sold on different propositions. Some of the biggest advocates of it are people that are shooting traditional archery as well, or Western hunters. So, for the whitetail hunter, I think we've been duped based off that. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So are you guys all agreeing with me and saying this is a gadget?
I only have an opinion if I'm super educated on it. I don't want to comment on it quite this time.
Wishy-washy, Jake.
No, I'm not trying to be a politician here, but I'm not going to be ignorant and make opinions on the internet without information. You have a compelling case. I have so many micro diameter different shafts in my shop right now, and then I have some 246s that when I get pissed off, I usually end up going back to those at some point. So maybe there's something to that. Okay. The wormhole entrance has now been opened for everyone. Have fun.
I think we'll leave it at that. What'd you bring today, Jake?
If you've watched any of our content for any time, you've definitely seen me wear this Sitka Jetstream jacket. I think I bought it in 2018, and I wear that thing literally all the time, and for a variety of reasons. And one of my favorite aspects of it is how good it is at cutting the wind. I'll put it this way, a lot of the farms, there's a farm that I hunt that has a windmill on it, and you can see it going all day, meaning it's windy. They're not putting those where it's not windy. So here in the Great Plains, that thing is perfect for cutting the wind. You don't have to layer up near as much. You can just literally wear that as an outer layer, or it's just super diverse. So, and it also does a really good job of cutting water as well. So it's, I wouldn't call it completely waterproof, but it does a great job at that. It's just awesome, man. I wear that thing literally all the time. If I'm scouting, shed hunting, working outside, I wear it as an everyday coat. During deer season, I don't wear it out and about, but I'll descent it. And when it's real windy, I'll wear it as just a tan solid. It's awesome. I really like it.
Yeah, I like that jacket a lot too. Anything that has wind stopper in it or some type of wind cutting membrane, any jacket or vest or any outer garment, it's a must. You could get torn apart on a 50-degree day if it's super high windy. It'll just cut right through you. I have thrown some pieces that I really liked it, and I'm like, this is great, but it doesn't have wind stopper in it, and I just don't wear it. So
yeah. Consider wind chill when you're going out in November. Gosh, you're not walking out like the Michelin Man. That cuts the wind, and then if you just have a good layering system underneath it, that's all you need, and can be streamlined, just like a Jetstream jacket. There you go.
What's the? I mean, obviously, a lot of the Sitka stuff is higher end, but what's the price tag? What's the price tag on that jacket?
$350, and I've wore that thing for 4 years now. I wear it literally all of the time, and there's not one like rip, tear, cut. All the zippers are intact. I mean, it's like I just bought it yesterday, and I think that speaks volumes in itself. I know it's expensive, don't get me wrong, but I've wore the heck out of it, and there's no signs of it slowing down.
One of the cool things, and again, I don't have that jacket. I have a bunch of other Sitka stuff and Kuya stuff, but the solids, when they're like just clean, solid colors, it's a nice looking jacket. Like there's a lot of crossover there with just everyday
Oh,
wear.
yeah. Yeah. You can wear that as, like I said, like an everyday jacket during this time of year too. And it has a lot of functionality. Another thing too, it does have really good moisture wicking capabilities as well. Like during shed season right now, you are sweating and moving around a lot. Like I don't feel, like sopping wet from sweat. And I know if I wear other jackets at times, that is what it's like at the end of the day.
Yeah, gear.
Yeah, I think it's a piece of gear. 95% of what Sitka makes is usually gear. They've had a couple weird things in my opinion, but yeah, definitely.
You're not wearing the archery
pant?
pant? You haven't bought the archery pant yet? With your
that was the first thing that came to mind.
With your
the
micro
range
diameter
pant,
arrows and
your
your
called, yeah.
going down your leg there. Are those for micro diameter or are those 246 size? We need to figure that out. But yeah, that's what I brought today.
Love it. Cameron, what do you got?
So I have what I think is one of the most overlooked items in people's gear. So they are boot gaiters. And I think in the Western world, they are not that overlooked, but I think for whitetail guys, they are. The gaiters that I have here, the First Light gaiters, these are the low cut ones, which I don't really love that much. I have full length ones that I like a lot more, and those are from Outdoor Vision Gear. I like them a lot more than these. And the idea behind boot gaiters is, and it's an added protection layer from water, essentially, but it also protects your boots from like jaggers and stuff when you're walking through the woods shed hunting. This is shed hunting time is a time that I'll always have gaiters on, because you're either dealing with like wet, mucky weather. There might be some snow on the ground still a little bit. So having extra protection for your boots and your feet is kind of critical. And the idea behind boot gaiters, keeping your feet more dry. You might have a pair of boots that are waterproof. Like, okay, I got waterproof membrane up until this far. Well, these gaiters are going to add another extra layer of waterproofing on the boot itself and higher. And when you think about when you're walking out through the woods, the way your pants and stuff get wet, it starts from the bottom and it works itself up. And when that happens, you also have gravity in effect, and the pants get wet, and then you have a sock, and the sock acts as like a sponge, and it sucks up all that moisture, and then where's the water go from there? It goes down your boots into your feet. So you might be walking outside, you're like, I got these waterproof boots, and the water never came above this level, and my feet are wet, or my boots are leaking. No, it's because your socks got wet, and it's soaked down into your feet, and that's what a pair of gaiters can protect you from. So one of the most overlooked, underutilized pieces of gear for people. I wear them early season hunting a lot because you have those early dewy mornings. And anytime there's snow on the ground, because that snow, that moisture, it just works up your boot leg and then drops right back down into your boot. So piece of gear I always recommend.
Man, I don't have these specific gaiters, but I also implemented a set of gaiters into my boot system or my gear system maybe 2 years ago, or maybe it was last year. And they make a ginormous difference. One, like you said, weather or moisture protection. I was surprised that you could physically walk in water over the top of your boots without getting water in your boots. And it's like, well, how is that possible? Like you would think the water would go up underneath of it. And from my experience, it didn't really. So that was a big shocker. But two, I think the overlooked part, I think, is just protecting your feet from the debris and branches and sticks that get wedged down in your boot when you're hiking long distances. And I think that's why they're probably more used in the Western world, where guys are doing long hikes versus the whitetail guys that are only walking maybe a couple hundred yards to their stand. But they are, man, if you are anti-rubber boot like most of us are, like these are a must have in your system, like 100% a piece of gear.
Yeah, drastically underrated in the world of hiking or hunting, and it is crazy. At times where you think your boots are going to get wet, you have those suckers on, and it sometimes feels like you're defying odds. Like, how is this even working? But it's really cool, and I don't wear them enough. I have a pair, and they're awesome. That's what I got.
Gear.